When you're talking about how you want to set up your relationship and your philosophy to life and about life, is yes, on a very micro day-to-day level, you can recognize the sadness, the grief, the loss that can come from certain things that happen in life, like death, murder, sickness, manipulation, abuse, these things that are clearly things that cause us harm or us suffering, right? Those are very real human experiences. And it's not to take away from those at all. It's actually to give your soul this understanding that when you zoom out, like we're saying, and you see life as it really is, that in fact there is a divine order, there is a duality, a light and dark, and that they all exist to propel the existence of the universe forward. And this is such a core principle of Zen and Eastern philosophy and Buddhism. When you enlighten and you awaken, you are seeing reality as it is without judgment, and that is going to include the light and the dark, the terrible things that happen. And, you know, people will interview the Dalai Lama and ask him, you know, like, what do we do about all the bad things happening? And his answer tends to be along these lines of recognizing that we are pushing on to these things, these intense perceptions of how we view the world, and that causes us suffering, which is okay. That's part of the human experience, is to feel these things and to experience the loss, the grief, like that is the human experience. But to then also have the spiritual capacity to lift higher and see the grand scheme of everything. And I think that's what's really important to highlight. Is it's not to say that we're condoning things that are obviously hurtful and harmful, and we can talk about, you know, these very micro concepts of what about this society thing, and what about this injustice. We can talk about those things and understand their unique, you know, the unique nuances of them, and we can also go to bed at the end of the day understanding the divine order of things, which is going to actually make us healed and better people to be able to handle anything that life throws at you.
Exactly. And I think a good example of what you're kind of getting at is A Man's Search for Meaning is written by a Nazi camp survivor, concentration camp survivor.
Yeah, Viktor Frankl.
And the entire book is about him finding purpose through that experience.
Yes.
And if he can find purpose through that experience and divine meaning in that, I mean...
Yeah, dude. That shit gives me chills.
Like,
if anyone has not heard of Viktor Frankl, I highly recommend looking him up and digging into some of his work. Just such an incredible man. And he went on to, he basically became like a very big figure in psychology and psychotherapy. I think technically logotherapy it's called. And he has all these interviews talking about, like, you know, how we understand world and suffering and darkness and all these things. And with his life experience, it just really hits home that you're like, wow, like there is really some truth to this idea. And it doesn't mean that we're numb to the world and that we're, you know, condoning violence and whatever. Like, that's not at all what it means.
Right. It's real, but is it really what our mind is perceiving it to be? You know, like the experience and the feelings are so real, but to zoom out and see kind of, it's almost like, I've heard the quote of like seeing a tapestry up close and then you zoom out and it's like this whole beautiful piece of art, but up close it just looks like nothing.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get lost in like the darker threads thinking like, wait, there's not even like a pattern here or anything. Like this is just gross and ugly. But then you zoom out and you're like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Yeah. I'm British suddenly.